Okay, this is about Edina City and School District sustainability initiatives. And I'm pleased to introduce Grace Hancock, who is Edina's sustainability coordinator. And she has lots of previous experience working on global environmental education and community engagement and urban planning and so forth. And currently she's leading the city's effort to create a climate action plan, writing and building support for the green fleet and green building policies. So Grace, I would be happy to turn it over to you, and thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it and look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Colleen. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you and meet you virtually. Julie, if you want to go ahead and queue up the PowerPoint, I think that can kick us off. Thank you. Looks good. So as Colleen said, I'm Grace Hancock. I'm the sustainability coordinator with the City of Edina. And Julie, if you want to go to the next slide. A little bit about myself. I want to introduce myself and some of the other folks and teams that are working on sustainability initiatives in Edina, talking mostly about what we've done to date as a city to address the challenge of climate change and become a city that is thriving with its natural environment. And then looking ahead, and Colleen kind of alluded to the big project of 2021, which is the city's first climate action plan. And I'll especially want to spend some time talking about how you all can be a part of that. So first, a little bit about me. I am new to the Twin Cities. I moved here in summer of 2020 from North Carolina. Really pleased to be here. Have enjoyed all the weather so far, and I'm looking forward to my first spring, my first Minnesota spring. I joined Edina, the City of Edina, in October, so I am coming up on 5 months, moving swiftly. I feel like I'm still counting in weeks as far as how long I've been here. But as Colleen mentioned, my background is in state and national environmental work, mostly on the strategy side. I'm thrilled to be working at the local level, working in my own backyard, and getting to see what changes we can make within the urban environment. A little bit more outside of work, when I'm not thinking about environment, I like to be out in it. And so I love to travel, I love to garden, and I love to cook. So I'm especially eager to get some things in the dirt and grow some vegetables and some pollinator flowers and things this summer. Next slide. So beyond me, who else is working on environmental initiatives in Edina? My primary team that I'm working with on a regular basis is the city's Resident Energy and Environment Commission. You can see here a little bit about this commission. They advise the city council on different environment and conservation issues. They meet on a monthly basis. They're meeting this evening, but I would always encourage you all to join a meeting. They're virtual right now. You can listen in. Eventually, hope, maybe in 2021, maybe in 2022, we'll move back to in person. We have both adult and student volunteer members. We're just bringing on a new group of adults. We have 5 new commissioners joining us this year, so that's really exciting to get some new perspectives and new ideas. A couple of their current projects that complement some of the things that I'll talk about today that are more squarely in my purview. They are looking at an Edina sustainable food packaging ordinance, and this has been in the works for a while and has become especially important as we have survived and worked through the pandemic and people are ordering out more and more, is how do we reduce the waste of that food takeout? So that's a big project for them. The Energy and Environment Commission is the primary body through which we are developing the climate action plan. They will be the group that ultimately recommends a plan to the city council. So they're a key partner in that. And then something I'll talk about a little bit later as well is this Green Business Recognition Program and the opportunities for businesses in Edina to take on some sustainability best practices and then get recognized for that. Next slide. And then the city council, they are, your elected officials. They hear from residents, they hear from commissions, and they hear from staff about how to approach the work of environment. And I wanted to mention, highlight the city council values, which are threefold and what we call the triple bottom line approach to effective city management. And so these are community engagement, equity, and sustainability. So sustainability is increasingly infused in everything that the city does. In every decision that the council makes, they are asking, how does this affect our natural environment? How does this affect the ability of the community to thrive and enjoy that natural environment? Next. And then I just want to spend a little bit of time on history and the city's commitment to sustainability. So looking way far back, the city has done a lot of work in the 90s and 80s, but I started us out here at 2007 when the city joined what is called the Regional Indicators Initiative. And this at the time was a pilot project, but has become widespread across Minnesota to help cities track their impact on the earth. And so RII helps the city track our greenhouse gas emissions, and we have been tracking those since 2007. In 2010, we started looking especially at building energy use. That's one of, at the time, it was the largest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions in the city and in the state of Minnesota. So the city knew it had to do something about that. Better understanding the problem led to solutions. 2015, the city established what is called the Conservation and Sustainability Fund, which is made up of utility fees, and it helps pay for the city's sustainability initiatives, including in 2016 when it brought on its first full-time sustainability staff person. A big, one more big milestone related to buildings is in 2019 when the City of Edina passed a building energy benchmarking ordinance, which means that buildings that are 25,000 square feet or larger in the City of Edina must report their energy use on an annual basis. And in near years, I think we're giving a few years more to adapt to this new aspect of the ordinance given the pandemic, but we will start using that data to help businesses increase their efficiency and reduce their overall energy use. And then in 2020 and in 2021, it's all about the climate action plan. So we're thinking bigger and broader about Edina's impact and opportunities around environment. Next slide. And one of those pieces is a big goal that the city has had for some time, and we're looking ahead to these goals. We are expecting to reduce the city's greenhouse gas emissions by 30% by 2025. And this is based on 2007 figures. The city had an inventory completed in 2007. We had we established our baseline at that point, and we said, in line with the state of Minnesota, we want to reduce that by 30% by 2025. And the big long-term goal right now is 80% reduction by 2050. I'll mention, and we'll return to this, I think, later in the presentation, but Susan?
You said 30% by 2025. What was it in 2007?
I can get those figures for you, but I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, all right, that's okay.
Yeah. And if we can go back one. I think we're going the wrong way, but you all are getting a great preview. And actually, while we're pausing, Julie or Colleen, how do we want to handle questions? I think we were going to hold those till the end, or folks could type them in the chat.
Yes, and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. We're going to hold the questions until the end. I'm so sorry, I forgot to mention. If you have one come up, you can put it in chat and we'll just respond at the end of the speakers, okay? Thank you, Grace.
Awesome. Thank you, Colleen. Okay. So then, yes, next slide from here. Awesome. Okay. So one of the city kind of guiding lights is this idea of a livable city. And if any of you all participated in the comprehensive planning process in 2017 and 2018, this was one of the 4 pillars of an effective city. And in the realm of environment, this means a few things. So I just want to touch on some of these concepts. There is the idea of mitigation and climate mitigation. And this is how can we reduce our impact as people, as a society on the planet. And this looks at energy efficiency, generating renewable energy, and electrifying our transportation, moving away from fossil fuels. On the flip side of that, the climate in Minnesota has already changed. We are seeing warmer and wetter winters. We're seeing more extreme and unpredictable weather events. And so there is already a need to adapt to this changed climate. And this means not only learning to live with the changed world, but learning how to manage those risks. And so in Edina, we're looking specifically at how can we better manage our forests and our green space to this new climate? How can we protect the built environment from the floods and manage our waterways responsibly? And then how can we change the way we interact with waste? How can we reduce it? How can we recycle it? How can we increase the amount that is composted? Both of these concepts are 2 sides of one coin, and that is the idea of resilience. And so next slide. And here's a definition of resilience. I think this is from the Rockefeller Center for Resilient Communities. And I'll just read it, even though you can see it. The idea of community resilience is that it is the capacity of individuals, communities, institutions, businesses, and systems within a city to survive, to adapt, and to thrive, no matter what kind of chronic stresses or acute shocks they encounter. So this is the goal. This is what sustainability in Edina is working toward, a city where everyone, every community member can survive, adapt, and thrive. Next slide. This starts to get at your question, actually, Susan. So this is good. I did some of my homework. So you can see here, we're going to talk first, I think, a little bit about that mitigation side. What is the city doing to reduce our impact on the planet? How can folks be involved? So you can see on the left our community greenhouse gas emissions profile from 2007. So at that time, we were at about 750,000 tons of carbon dioxide per year. The majority of this was building energy use, 69%. 2% was waste, and about 1/3 was transportation. Those numbers have shifted looking at 2018 emissions. It is less building energy use, more transportation, waste has held steady. We have reduced our emissions by about 14% from 2007 to 2018, which is not enough. We need to go bigger. The one milestone that I didn't mention since it had passed is that the city did have a goal to reduce their emissions 15% by 2015. They did not reach that goal. The state of Minnesota had the same goal and they did not reach it. This is a trend. So we are looking at how do we double this reduction in 5 years and really 4 years. And that is the challenge in front of us. But we have made some progress both through increasing the renewable energy available on the electricity grid and through targeted changes that the city has made to its operations. Next slide. So I want to talk first about clean transportation. That is a larger part of our emissions profile than it was as our electricity becomes cleaner and greener, where we need to turn our attention to transportation. So a couple notes for what the city has done to date. Within transportation, we have reduced our emissions 10% since 2011. And you'll notice that our baselines shift a little bit from slide to slide from between 2007 to 2011. And that's just because the city has really improved its record keeping in the last 15 or so years. And so I'm pulling from the best available data, basically. But in the last 10 years, we have reduced our transportation emissions by 10%. We're also increasing availability and access for electric vehicle charging stations. And that there are public charging stations at City Hall and at the 50th and France parking ramp. Beyond single car ownership, we're looking at how to increase overall community mobility. So there's the Clover Ride circulator that's available. We're looking into potentially offering an electric vehicle car share opportunity where folks would not have to own their own EV, but they could share it within the community. And then of course, we're increasing every year pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. Next slide. Returning to buildings, we've made a lot of strides on the building side of things. So as I mentioned, we instituted a building energy benchmarking ordinance in 2019. Any building in Edina that is 25,000 square feet or larger must report their energy use data on an annual basis. And as I mentioned, in a couple of years, the ordinance requires that we begin to work with businesses who are missing the mark on energy efficiency to help them increase that efficiency. We're also actively developing a sustainable buildings policy that would again apply to municipal and to commercial buildings. And this, instead of asking buildings that already exist to tell us how they're doing, we want to get in on the front end and we want to help buildings build better and increase that efficiency from the get-go. And then finally, and this is a note where you all can plug in, the city does offer their Green Business Recognition Program. The Energy and Environment Commission runs this program, and they are improving it in 2021 and looking to expand the number of businesses that participate. So if you are in a business in Edina, ask them if they participate and let them know that they should. And the program offers guidance and recognition for how to become more sustainable businesses. Next slide. And then I wanted to mention home energy efficiency, so residents. There are a number of ways that residents in Edina can improve their energy efficiency and reduce their impact on the planet. The first one is to schedule a home energy squad visit, and you can find this link on our website. The City of Edina partners with a nonprofit group, the Center for Energy and Environment, to cost share these visits where you'll have someone come audit your home, let you know, here are the free things that you can do to increase efficiency. Here are the renewable energy options, etc. So it's a great program. We have a couple hundred homes that participate each year, and we always welcome more. Renewable energy subscriptions. You can subscribe to ensure that your energy is clean. Through Excel, you can subscribe to solar or to wind source. And then I just wanted to highlight this final website, homeenergyhub.org, which is again through the same nonprofit as Home Energy Squad, which you can go to and see a number of ways to increase the efficiency at home. Next slide. Finally, on the energy side, the city is actively looking into how we can increase the amount of renewable energy available to Edina residents and businesses. So the city subscribes to about 5.5 million kilowatt hours of electricity. It's solar electricity. That covers about 1/3 of our energy needs, and we're looking to increase that number. We also host a 700,000 kilowatt hour solar array on the Public Works building. So we're using our buildings to increase the amount of renewable energy. And we have 68 subscribers, all residents, to that solar array. Next slide. Finally, waste. If you're a resident of Edina, you received a curbside organics cart last year, and we are coming up on that 12-month anniversary. Waste is 2% of our emissions, but it has a larger impact than that. Landfills emit methane gas, which is very potent, though shorter lived than carbon dioxide. Folks who live near a landfill have to deal with increased air pollution from trucks bringing waste to and from. So when we think about that triple bottom line of how does a given aspect of city operations impact sustainability, impact community engagement, and impact equity, waste really is an important piece that we need to deal with. So right now in 2020, organics recycling was about 15% of the city's waste profile. We want to grow that, and we want to reduce the amount that's going to the landfill. So I would encourage you all to keep an eye on, how you all can increase the amount of waste you're diverting from landfills over to the curbside organics. And then I'll mention that right now it's only for residents, but we're actively increasing it to businesses and apartment buildings. Next. Just a couple notes on the adaptation side. The first one is water and flood resilience. This bar graph on the left is from the Hennepin County Climate Action Plan that is in draft form right now. And it shows that from 1980 to today, we have increased our annual precipitation by about 4 inches, which is noticeable. It's nearly 20% increase in precipitation. And that means more flooding, more localized flooding, and more opportunity or more risk of polluted waterways. So the city is actively managing this. They have developed a flood reduction strategy and are offering targeted improvements, including to the Morningside neighborhood. That's a key project that's occurring right now. Next slide. And then beyond water, what about our trees and our green space? So I just wanted to share a couple of stats here that right now the City of Edina estimates its tree canopy coverage to be about 43%. And this means that 43% of the land in Edina has tree cover. That's pretty good, but there is the challenge of invasive pests, including the emerald ash borer. So you can see I added just a couple of numbers here for city trees removed in 2019 and 2020 and planted in 2019 and 2020. We are planting more than we're removing, but a challenge is understanding where are these ash trees? Where do they need to be removed before they spread this pest? So I wanted to note we have a resource on our website where you can go to a map. This is a screen grab on the left of that map. And you can go to your property or your neighborhood and you can see where there are ash trees. You can even report if you see ash trees in your neighborhood that are not on the map. And this helps our urban forester figure out where he needs to be spending his time. Next slide. So then just a couple notes on what's next. I mentioned the climate action plan. This is the big piece. And the climate action plan really allows Edina to imagine what does a future look like that is resilient? What does it look like where our community members are thriving in Edina? And it identifies an action plan, a pathway forward for how we can accomplish this. We just had our kickoff meeting with our consultant, Pale Blue Dot, who is leading this process. We had that kickoff meeting this week. They are getting going, and we expect to start to bring in community engagement pieces within the coming weeks. Next slide. And I just wanted to note 3 big pieces of an action plan. The first piece is a climate baseline. There's some technical homework that we need to do. It includes a new greenhouse gas inventory. We haven't had one completed since 2007. It's time for an update. It includes what's called a vulnerability assessment, quantifying these challenges. How at risk are our trees? How at risk is our water? How at risk is our built environment, including our electricity grid, to the changes in climate? The next piece is community engagement. This is just as important as understanding the technical aspects, is getting communities involved, hearing your how you value environment, hearing how you want to broach these problems, and what solutions you're most excited to implement. And then that leads us to the action plan, which is a combination of these 2 things, helping us meet the challenges that science uncovers for us with actions that the community can get behind. Next slide. And then just briefly, I know this is super busy, but this just gives you an idea for the community engagement around the climate action plan. We will have a series of workshops. They'll be virtual. We might be able to hold some outdoors over the summer to remain safe in the midst of COVID-19. We will have virtual platforms, including Better Together Edina, if any of you have interacted with that before. And we will ensure that community members have a wide array of opportunities to access and share their opinion on the plan. And the plan is expected to be recommended to the council for adoption in December of this year. So we're moving quickly. And I think the next and final slide, and that's it. These are the 4 pillars of the City of Edina. And as I mentioned, there's the Livable City for you. But I want to thank everyone. I know I covered a lot of ground, but I appreciate your listening. I think I'll pass it off to Colleen.
Does anyone have any questions right now?
There are a couple in chat, and let me just, since they're specific to what you presented, Grace, I think it'd be great to respond to those now. Kathy asked, 30% reduction in all Edina emissions or just from city-owned buildings, et cetera?
All Edina. Yeah, we are tackling them in kind of twofold, looking specifically at the city, what can the city do as well as the community, but we want to see that 30% reduction across the community.
Thank you. And then Jean would like you to describe how the solar subscription works for an individual homeowner.
Sure. I think I'll just speak a minute to that, and Jean, we can always connect offline because it is kind of a spiel. But I will say that the Public Works solar array is fully subscribed. So those 68 residents are using all of the solar energy that we are producing. So what we're doing at this point is connecting folks to our partners in the community. And this includes either working with XL Energy directly to subscribe to their community solar garden programs. So it's very similar to WindSource. I would happily talk about that more later. Or you can even look at installing solar panels. And we work most closely with a cooperative called Cooperative Energy Futures. It's a Minnesota nonprofit who works to install solar panels on residents and businesses. They are the group that installed our Public Works solar array. So they're kind of what, there are 2 pathways. Both are exciting.
Great. That's the only 2 questions I saw in the chat. If anyone has a question before we move on to hear from the school, please feel free to ask now. Well, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the school district folks that are joining us. And I'm pleased to announce we've got lots of people from the buildings and grounds. First, we're going to hear from Eric Hamilton, and he's the director of buildings and grounds, and then from Laurie Wilcox and Curt Johanson, and they're going to speak about the district's sustainability efforts, including solar and other activities, other energy initiatives. So Eric, thank you all, buildings and grounds folks for joining us. And Eric, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting us. Laurie and Curt both work in my department with me, and I'm lucky to have them. So I'd like to thank them for all they do also. I also want to thank you for your support of schools. Obviously, we're looking forward to getting every kid back in our buildings as soon as possible, but we appreciate the support of the community. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about some high-level things, what the district level we're doing, some things we're doing architecturally, mechanically, and electrically. And then we'll end on the solar side of the things that we've done. So I've been here, I came in 2013, so I've been here 7.5 years. And every year since I've started here, we've worked mechanically on upgrading our facilities. And when I think about COVID and I think back to 2013, I'm very thankful that COVID decided to come last year and this year, as opposed to 8 years ago. We've made some dramatic strides in upgrading our building mechanical systems, bringing in fresh air, balancing the air, cooling the air, making it more comfortable, and then proving it by getting third-party entities to test it and verify that we're truly doing what we say we're doing. So as bad as COVID is, it does allow me to reflect on the real positive things that we've been able to do in this district over the last 8 years. So as soon as I came here, we changed basically everything. We changed the cleaning supplies that they used. We've gone to green products and reduced the number of cleaning products that we put in the building. We changed the toilet paper. We go from cord toilet paper down to a coreless toilet paper, so we have less waste and less handling by staff. Construction-wise, the goal of coming in and mechanically changing the building is to allow us to actually control the buildings instead of having the buildings control us, so we can actually have start times that work and ending times that work. It's kind of crazy to believe that we had units that we had very little control over, but now we certainly have full control, which makes a big difference on energy consumption and comfort. When we do paving projects, we work closely with the watershed districts, and as the presenter before stated, we're getting more and more rain in our communities. And the watershed knows that. And when we do paving projects, we're required to hold back that rainwater so it doesn't go in directly into the creeks. So we get more rainwater that gets up, even though we're paving it over, it's being absorbed into the asphalt. So we'll have underground cisterns holding that water back and allowing it to filtrate back into the ground. We've reduced our fertilization since we've been here by about 1/3. We're re-roofing our roofs, and by putting money into those roofs, we've determined that multiple roof sections had wet insulation. And if you know anything about wet insulation, it does nothing to insulate. Insulation works really well when it's dry, really poorly when it's wet in the wintertime because it turns hard. We've been working with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency on salt distribution certification. So we've been reducing and have been able to reduce our salt uses by at least 50%. And we've trained or sent all of our grounds people, head engineers, building staff to the MPCA salt reduction training. So they've all been certified. So they understand the impact of putting more salt down. More isn't necessarily better. Because of those initiatives, we've received an environmental leadership on fresh water. That would happen a couple of years ago. That was fun to get. And then in 2018, the Rotary asked us to participate with them on planting trees. And so we've had a generous donation of beautiful trees from the Rotary, and we were able to plant over 30 of them district-wide, which was a fun event. Architecturally, when we come in, we're going to replace windows. We put in low argon, high efficiency windows. We're removing single pane windows. Believe it, we still have single pane windows in our buildings. We use low VOC paint, and we try to make sure that we bring in as much natural light into spaces as possible. Mechanically is really where it's all at. That's where the energy savings comes in. That's where the comfort level comes in. That's where we're spending most of our money right now. So we're putting in variable speed pumps, so they don't have to run all on when it's not required. We've installed energy recovery, which means that we've heated space. We push out that heated space and bring in fresh air. We have those air systems pass, and we gather some of that heat off of the and warm up that fresh air coming in. In our large spaces like gymnasiums, we actually have the fans operate at 2 different speeds. So we can, when it's not a big event, we'll just have them run at half speeds. If it's a big event, we need to bring in more air, we can ramp those up to a full speed. And then we've also installed into those large spaces D-strat fans, which is just fans up at the ceiling to break up the stratification of the air in the space. Makes it more comfortable and more energy efficiency with heating. A big push is we've been converting away from steam into hot water. That's very invasive in our buildings, but instead of heating water to 212 plus degrees and pushing that steam throughout the building, we're heating water anywhere from 120 to 130 degrees and pushing that water through the building. It's quieter, it's more comfortable, it's more energy efficient. We've been working on our pools. At Southview Pool, we've upgraded and changed the filtration of the pool. We've also included UV into that, which makes it, it actually kills bacteria in the water along with our chemicalization. So it's safer. It knocks down the chloramines in that breathing zone of swimmers. If you're a swimmer, it's a safer product to use in that location. So, and then we'll be upgrading the Valley View pool in upcoming years. We do B3 reporting, and Laurie is going to talk about that a little bit. We've also been working with Energy Star and trying to get our buildings Energy Star rated, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then we've also used Minnesota RETAP. It's actually a department of Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. So RETAP is retired engineers who volunteer their time to come into your buildings and use their vast knowledge and skill and assess the buildings and come up with recommendations. It's free. It's put on by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and we've done it to 2 schools now, and we'll it's amazing what they produce for nothing, and they get enjoyment out of it, and we get great data. So we've done that twice. We'll continue to use them. Electrically is when we touch our buildings electrically, that's really where we get the impact from the teachers. You know, if we do a summer's worth of mechanical upgrades in our building and include lighting in our classrooms, we could spend $7 or $8 million doing all this work, tearing out boiler systems, putting it all back. They won't know the difference. They won't see the difference. They'll come back to a clean room, but they'll come back to a lighting that they know changed in their classroom, and it's controllable lighting. And so we get the most ooh-ahs from the lighting than we do all the other work that we do. So we're putting in LED fixtures. The goal is to get every building done. The ECC building will be the first 100% LED building, and we hope to have that done by the end of this summer, early fall. We put in dimmable switches so you can control the light in your space. You can turn it down and turn it up. We do daylight harvesting. So if you have a windowed office or classroom, the lights closest to the window may dim automatically based on the amount of light that's happening outside. And then we put on manual switches on. So if you walk into a space, the lights won't turn on automatically. You have to decide to turn them on. What that does is if you're going in to pick up a piece of paper, it doesn't turn the lights on for 5 minutes. You just grab your piece of paper, walk out. If you're going to be in there, you turn them on, and then they turn off automatically. So we've been doing occupancy sensor off. The goal is to do district-wide LED, and we've been pushing on that. We've been doing several parking lots, several buildings. We're not done yet, but we're going to work through that process. And then we put solar on some of the buildings. If I can share my screen quick, I'll show you the Cornelia. Let's see, here we go. This is a Cornelia site. I'm assuming you can see this. So this is what we look at. This is what I can look at for each of our sites. So you can see the picture of the Cornelia. This is the week. I can click on the day. So this is what's happening in real time during the day. You can kind of see what happens in the winter time. I can go back a month. Maybe don't let me. You can see what it does in the winter time when it's covered with snow. But as soon as that snow melts off, you can see that we're actually producing electricity. This is the Cornelia. I can go back and show you. We have a Project Earth one at the high school. It's just a small array, and it's built for education. Let's see if it'll pull it up. So in other words, it's not producing a lot of electricity, but it's producing a lot of data. So if you can see the 4 panels at different angles, and then each of the 2 panels are different. So they actually look the same, but they are built differently and they produce different amounts of electricity. So there's data in each of these panels. And so they can do, the real value of this is the data that's behind the scenes in this program that the teachers can use. So that was kind of a fun one. That was paid for by the students, so we own that one 100%. The electricity that it produces gets used directly in the building automatically. I'll also show you the bus garage or transportation center. Take a second for it to pull up. So with Cornelia and the transportation center, we don't own the solar panel. So this is actually a picture of the bus storage area. So at the Cornelia and transportation center, we don't own the solar. We've have a 20-year agreement with SolarPod, who put the solar on our building. The school district paid $0 for the solar. We benefit from the solar. We use the solar on site. Anything that we don't use gets pushed out to the grid. And then we agree to pay SolarPod so much per energy produced. And then anything after that, we get the money for. So it's zero outlay. They maintain it for 20 years. At the end of 20 years, the school district gets to decide what they want to do with it. They can either, if it's producing and it looks great and there's no issues, we can go have an agreement with them to have it left in place. And then whatever the fair market value is at that point, we would agree to pay them. Or SolarPod is required to remove the panels and walk away 100%, and the district is back to square one. That's solar. And the other thing that we're doing is Energy Star. So when we first came here, we didn't have any Energy Star rated buildings, and that's through the US government. Right now we have 5 Energy Star rated buildings. And we're getting 3 more evaluated. I just learned that they really don't have an Energy Star rating for transportation buildings. So I think the max we'll be able to get is 9, and that's what our goal is. Buildings with pools are very difficult to get, for some reason, Energy Star rated. So we're working really hard to see if we can get Southview Energy Star rated. That's what I had. Laurie, did you want to go next? You're muted. You're muted, Laurie. Sorry.
Hi. So I'm going to talk about benchmarking and where we were basically a year ago, where we are today. The city kind of drove where we were. By the end of 2019, we had to have 1 building benchmarked. And by the end of 2020, we had to have all of our buildings benchmarked. So we really started off doing things manually, and now everything flows. So I'd like to share our benchmarking with you. I just got to figure this out here. Bear with me. Okay, so Eric, can you buzz over here? Oh. So how come I can't share that?
There you go. Can you make it full size?
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that.
And thank you
So,
for masks on when you're getting close together. Thank you. It was
Oh.
noted.
yeah, we do that all the time. So I'm going to run through Cornelia. So like I said, I started with buildings and grounds just over a year ago. I've been in the district for 20 years, and I ended up in buildings and grounds, used to work in facilities. And when I came here, all of this was really entered manually. So now everything flows from our energy, XL energy bill, our CenterPoint energy bill, flows into a program called Portfolio Manager, and then it flows into benchmarking. And what it allows us to do is compare our district, our buildings with similar like buildings in other communities. And that's where we kind of get an idea of how much energy we're using and what it looks like. So I'm just going to go over Cornelia, which is one of our buildings that is Energy Star rated. And we're just going to take a look. You know, this is our utility bills for the gas. And you can actually, hang on, see here. Maybe not. Doesn't want to do that. That's okay. We'll look at electric. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, we can.
Yep.
Doesn't want to make it any bigger for some reason. There we go. So you can actually see by the month, which is weird. It's only letting me pull it down a little bit. But you can see it started in 2008 for the electric because we've had it for many years. And if I scroll all the way down, unfortunately, it won't let me show the full screen, but this one is right up to date until the end of the year. So every month, CenterPoint Energy or XL drops the information into the benchmarking, and then we're able to view what we need to view. And for some reason, it's not letting me really get along around this very well. But so back to our dashboard, it should show you, you'll see what Cornelia looks like, the energy that it's using, the cost that it is per year. It breaks it down into the space, what percentage is used for classrooms, for offices, gymnasiums. And then as we go through, we can look at the metrics of it all. So the B3 benchmark rating is a 4-star rating. And this is the peer rating. So when I spoke earlier, how we're compared with other districts and other similar spaces, we're ranked 84th with other similar places. And then our Energy Star rating, that's what you get through the state. We've got a 92%, which is pretty awesome. And years ago, I don't think there was anywhere near that, just with all the savings that we've made and the changes that we made. And you can see here, we're using less energy than we have in the past, 28%. So, and this is something we'll hopefully get those other buildings done. And this is really just kind of a stepping stone for us to see where we can improve things. And it's been a process to work for. It's basically taken a year to get it up to date. And eventually I would like to see the solar. We're kind of working on that so that we can see it incorporated in this as well. And that's pretty much covers it, I think. Yeah. So hopefully next time we'll have more buildings that are Energy Star rated. There we go.
And then we'll turn it over to Curt, I believe, right?
Yes, thanks, Laurie. Hi, everyone. My name is Curt Johanson. I'm the Buildings and Grounds Manager for Edina Schools. Kind of my day-to-day job is to be working with the custodians, kind of managing the day-to-day needs of each of the schools. And I too started back in 2013, late September. And the first thing that was kind of handed to me was the Go Green Team packet meetings kind of thing. So I started out that almost like the first month I started here, and meeting with the group and just kind of seeing what the needs are out of this group. It consists of PTO members, members from the community, a couple of admins would come in. And the biggest push was doing some better signage, better way for the kids to get their trash, organics, and recycling, in the right containers. And also, when we started here back in that time, the high school was the only school that was doing organics. So shortly after we started, both Eric and I, we secured a contract with Waste Management, and they did a one-stop shop. We had multiple people come and pick up our trash, pick up recycling. The organics is picked up by somebody different, and so we just housed under one. So we put organics at all the schools, and over the course of a couple of years, we applied for a couple grants through Hennepin County, get some money to make stations for the elementary schools, so we can house an organics station, recycling, and a trash barrel. And above that, we can label what things go where. And then each day, if we get a little bit of help through the kitchen staff, we can hang things above each of the barrels so everybody knows kind of where things go. The second year in 2015, 2016 school year, we applied for another grant, and we got that, and we bought a lot of trash stations, which house trash, recycling, and organics. The elementary schools got one when you first walk into the building. The high school and each of the secondary schools got multiples. High school got a lot of them. I think we ended up with 24, 28 of them throughout the building. So we kind of really started working at that. And I was also able to hire somebody to kind of help with some of the training with starting out with the young kiddos and then kind of working their way up to going to the high school and kind of help coach there. That's been a little bit of a challenge, especially when lunches are 20 minutes long and you just get up and all of a sudden you see the first container and that's where the stuff ends up. And so we're working with the kid groups. We have little each of the secondary schools have groups that go green and they want to get involved in that. So sometimes we'll meet with them and they'll come up with ideas and make signage, hang out by the trash containers in those schools to kind of help kids navigate that. So when it's time to leave, they know where the items go. One thing we did learn, and something we're going to hopefully work for, is if we can get either some more student involvement or eventually working with Hennepin County and possibly getting another grant, it'd be nice to hire somebody again to spend a year and a half here, starting off in the elementary schools and doing the training and working there all the way up. Because the hope is that the young kiddos will bring that training along when they get into the secondary schools and get into the high school. They know what this all means. Plastic goes into here, food, uneaten food goes into this container. And so that's a goal that we've been working on. And I think that we've done very, very well with some of the PTO groups and working with waste management. They've come to a couple of the elementary schools and did a weigh-in, kind of see where the contamination rates are. We did really well on those weigh-ins. Like I said, we're still kind of working out some scenarios with the high school to do a little better job there. I think that's kind of what I had. That was kind of our goal for over the course of the 7 years I'm here, is to kind of get organics to be, recycling to be, and lower our trash amounts. So I can tell you, when we set up trash, that our trash in most of our schools, other than maybe our bigger ones, are picked up only a couple times a week, recycling a little more frequently, and then organics will get picked up daily during a normal school year. I think that's about all I have.
Thank you, Curt. Thank you, Laurie. And thank you again for having us. I appreciate it. Just know that with Edina Public Schools, you can tell this is just, it's a work in progress and it's constant. You have to constantly be working at things to even keep the status quo. So we're trying to keep moving that needle forward, and we don't hit a home run every time, but we're really looking for a lot of singles. So thank you. I don't know if you have any questions, but we appreciate you inviting us to your group.
And I would just like to say that hearing from both the city and the school district makes me very proud to live in Edina. I mean, you're doing a lot of things to move us along a path that can be a little bit bumpy, but it's moving us along. And I think that is very important. And those young students, I mean, I learned to recycle from my kids when they would go around Washington, D.C. picking up pop bottles that were thrown out. We need to recycle this. I'm like, well, we can start in the house first. But, you know, I think that young kids, your point, Curt, about training them young and hopefully it carries on through, I think that's a good idea. And Eric, I'm going to ask a question that maybe I should know more about, but I don't. I know that there's a vote coming up in May, and it's going to do some work on some parking lots at some of the schools, I forget which. Is there much financial impact of what you're doing in either of those, not in the technology, but in the bus area and that sort of thing? Much in there for that?
So you're correct. There is a vote coming up. It's a 2-question vote. First question is renewal of the technology. If that vote is approved, then it goes to the second vote, second question, and that is for $7 million to do improvements on 4 areas. One is to finish off the building out of the transportation center so that at some point we can bring in all of the buses that we operate, and then we wouldn't have to have any subcontractors. We would expand parking at Countryside. We would modify some, when I say expand parking and then separate buses from cars at Countryside. Expand the parking at Creek Valley and try to again separate buses from cars. And then the challenge one for me, and I kind of grown just having to do it, but it's the Valley View. So it's the main entrance and exit for the high school. It's the main parking lot for Valley View. And we have to, when we got the bond passed to add on to the high school, the city really was pushing us to modify the entrance exit out of the high school onto Valley View Road. And I really pushed back saying that's not the right time, wasn't in our budget. I don't want to do it. I whined a little bit. They said, well, next time you reclaim this parking lot, we're going to ask you to do that. And I said, okay, that's fair. When I look at that one, it's just going to be challenging. I don't want to lose parking, but I think the city wants us to align cross streets, which makes it safer. It makes sense to me. It's just me pushing back a little bit. So that's the fourth project. You asked about dollars. I'm not going to quote it. It's not a large impact. It's less than $10 a year. I hate to even put numbers out there. They're listed somewhere, and I don't have that in my head. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Thank you for that information. And we have a couple of former school board members on the call, and some people that, well, whether school board members or just parents of Edinans, remember when you had to cross the street to get from the parking lot at Edina High School to the school, and that got changed in, I don't even know what year it was. I should know, but 2004 or something like that. And so there are changes that have to continue along. So we're, and hopefully we're asking if the school district would like us to present something to the community regarding the vote that is coming up. I don't know if we have a response on that. We don't have a response on that at this point. I can see someone shaking their head. So, but it's something, and I would encourage you to talk about the improvements that you've made and when you're going forward, asking for this additional funding, because I think it matters to have the residents hear some of the good changes that have come about as you go asking for some more changes to be made. Just my comment.
Thank you.
And we have a couple things in chat, I believe. Well, one, schools have come a long way. That's a very positive comment. And the other, hats off to EPS on winter and summer grounds maintenance and how those positive changes contribute to clean water and great looking grounds.
Yeah, so, I've got a great grounds crew. So if you happen to see them, any encouragement would be great. They really do a fantastic job. So I appreciate that.
And I'm proud to say the less amount of salt that we use. When we first, both Eric and I got here, it was amazing how much salt that they used here. I think it's just incredible how the little amount that we're able to use and the equipment that we are able to remove the snow and get you right back down to, tar or cement.
Yes, thank you. And when I was on the board, dandelions were a big issue. Oh my goodness. If you put things on to kill the dandelions, that's terrible. If you don't, they're contaminating my yard. Oh, well. So your grounds crew is doing a very good job with all of that.
Thank you. I think somebody else had a hand up. I don't know if I saw one. There you go.
Thank you. I didn't see it. Go ahead, Jean.
Hi, question for Grace. Thanks for your presentation. I'm curious about the compostable program. Is it where you would have expected at this point? And what do you see as far as anticipated growth and what's in the pipeline as far as anticipating or encouraging people to participate?
Yeah, thanks, Jean. I'll mention a couple points of information and then I think address your question. So I know that the city hosts quarterly what are called town talks that are topical, and the talk for March for this first quarter was organics. Our organics coordinator, Twyla Singh, presented last week, and I think it's recorded on the website on organics recycling. So I'd encourage that as a resource. But so in 2020, we're coming up on our 12-month anniversary of introducing curbside organics to residents. We have about a 30% adoption rate. About 30% of homes are actively participating, which is pretty good. Minneapolis has had their organics recycling program for quite a bit longer, and they just recently reached 50% of participating homes. So we're happy with this beginning. In 2021, our goals are a couple-fold: increase residential participation. I think our organics coordinator is looking to increase by 10% or to 40% in 2021, but also roll it out, increase access. And so this is looking specifically at amending the ordinance to include commercial properties, requiring businesses to participate in the composting program. And this would affect multifamily residents as well, such as apartment buildings. So one big question we get is from residents who live in apartments or condos asking, I don't have organic recycling, where can I drop it off? So we want to get it in everyone's home, regardless of what kind of home they live in, and B, look seriously into drop-off points within the city of Edina. Folks can take organics recycling to Hennepin County drop-off sites, but those are in Bloomington. So we're looking at offering drop-off sites at our farmers market over the summer, assuming we're able to have some kind of presence in person, and then also looking at instituting that at city buildings across the city. So there's a couple, it's increasing access and increasing requirements. Susan?
And Susan has her hand up, I see.
Well, I listened to what Tiffany said on the organics recycling program, Town Talks, and she said it took Edina about 30 years to get recycling to the percentage it is. And I hope this doesn't take that long because people know it's happening. But I mean, I was very encouraged by her saying, we're going to keep pressing. So that's good. She has the right attitude.
Yeah, and we don't have that kind of time anymore. We don't have 30 years to get this right. So
no.
I appreciated the school system mentioning fertilizer and grounds maintenance, because that is a big piece of the organics puzzle, is that the fertilizer that the city uses and that many properties use can be toxic to pets, to children, to pollinators. But if we can replace that with compost that we're generating from organics recycling within the community, we remove that toxic risk. And so we're really excited at the opportunity to close that gap as well. It's not just about reducing waste, it's about improving our natural environment. And so the more folks we have participating, the better.
I have a question, and I don't know, maybe Curt knows the answer, or maybe Eric. Do you, at the school district, are you tracking when you're using, trying to reduce waste, are you tracking like how you've done over a period of so many years in reducing the amount of waste, or more going to recycling and more going to organics? Or is that benchmarking, is that still to come with your benchmarking project?
Waste management helps us with that. Probably more to come, but waste management can really definitely tell us how things have been going over, even just in the course of a year or 6 months. We get flagged if somebody has stopped by. Concord gets picked on a lot when somebody brings a couch over or is moving out of a house and they've put it in the wrong container. We'll get a flag, or they take pictures of what's going on inside when they empty the truck out. So we get notifications on that, but they help us keep track on that.
And so do we have records to indicate that we're actually, because you're trying to do more recycling and more organics, that you're actually reducing the amount of waste generated per year?
It's ebb and flow. We have some good years and some years we do not, unfortunately, with the contamination rate. Some of the things, like I was just telling you, from the outside stuff, I can't control when outside people come in and throw stuff away in the wrong dumpsters. Gotcha. So yeah, yes, we've had good years, but it ebbs and flows.
And Kathy, that's just one of those that is an ongoing renewal. It's like every school year we have to start the same message over again. It's like, I don't know if people forget over 3 months, but it's constant. And then it's also, there's a big factor of student involvement. We have really good student involvement some years and less other years. And so we'll have some student organizations that actually want to do a an assessment. So they'll take so much trash, tear it apart and see how much should have been recycled as a kind of a learning thing that they can pass on. And then we do work with our waste management and they do trash assessments and weigh how much trash we're producing compared to recycling. It's not real accurate. It's rough just because there's so many factors that impact that. But we have, when we compared to when we first started, we have reduced. I don't have those numbers, but we are impacting in that area. It's just an ongoing constant. We just have to keep beating that drum.
I know for a fact because we're not dumping trash at all sites every single day. That's been a huge change since Eric and I have started here.
Thank you.
Joni.
I have a question for both. I think we've heard about the ways that students can be involved with public schools efforts, but league members often ask, what can I do? And does each entity have any suggestions for citizen involvements that we can pass on to league members?
Are you referring to trash recycling?
I'm referring to kind of maybe 3 ways that, or 2 ways that citizens can be involved in helping your entity make changes that are environmentally friendly, that are sustainable.
That's kind of broad. This is Eric Hamilton, not Buildings and Grounds Director. This is my personal viewpoint. So if I can put that caveat in there. I really like what Grace said about the push from the city to encourage the packaging that comes from facilities, whether it's carry out or whatever you're doing. I know we're working with our food service department about getting every container, as much as possible, single thing that we give to a kid could go into the organics. And so if we had something like that with the businesses, I mean, I went to the Legion on Friday and picked up my fish fry, and it was, I bet we had, I got 2 meals, full bag, plastic, plus the bag. I mean, I had so much trash. I'm just looking at that. And so when Grace talked about the initiative to try to get that to a different location, that's where I know there's products out there that can eliminate the majority of that other stuff. And it's just a choice. And it might be a cost choice. But if I'm, as the end user, willing to give an extra $1, I honestly wouldn't have known the difference between my $21.50 and my $22.50. I don't know. That's one that really resonates with me personally.
What about for city involvement?
Yeah, and thanks, Eric. I think you picked some thoughts for me, which is that the first piece is involvement. The city is not, we as staff can look broadly and say what are best practices that cities are using to become more sustainable, but without resident support, it's not a strong case to the council. So we always need residents involved. The 2 pieces of proposed legislation going to the council this year that come to mind for me are the food packaging ordinance. So the Environment Commission is working on that now. They've had stakeholder forums with restaurant owners and restaurant managers. They will be presenting a draft ordinance to the city council likely over the summer sometime. And so getting resident support for that is a big part. Offering those personal stories about the amount of waste that is currently generated really makes it a lot more meaningful than just data. And the other ordinance is what I mentioned, the sustainable buildings ordinance, where the city is trying to get ahead of the curve on building energy use. And how can we require and support developments that are being built. Edina has a very robust development sector. We see a lot of new buildings go up every year. And how can we help those buildings be more efficient from the get-go? So getting the league involved on that side and hearing your questions, your concerns, and hopefully ultimately your support on that. Beyond getting involved, coming to a meeting, whether it's city council or environment commission, as Xcel Energy has transitioned from fossil fuel energy, the electricity grid is cleaning, and energy use is increasingly not the top emitter of greenhouse gases in the state of Minnesota. It's transportation. And so we are, as a city, trying to understand what are our options? What are our options in a suburb where most people drive? So how can we increase walking and biking infrastructure, but also how can we electrify the vehicles that are on the road? This helps us with greenhouse gases. It reduces air pollution for people who live near highways. So help us think about that. One piece that we are looking into, and you'll see some opportunities for public involvement, is, as I mentioned, introducing an electric vehicle car share to Edina. And this would both decrease the amount of miles that are traveled using fossil fuels and increase accessibility to this clean technology to folks who may not have it in their budget to buy a personal electric vehicle. So, we're having to think outside the box, and we need residents to be a part of that. So bring us your ideas, and don't be afraid to weigh in for the ideas that I or other city staff put before you.
Any other questions for, Susan? Or no, I saw your hand up, sorry. It was a shadow. Anything else? Well, let me just thank Grace and Eric and Laurie and Curt for this wonderful information and for the work that you're doing, for sure. It's important, and we'll work hard to make sure that Edina residents know how important that is and encourage them to give you input and so forth. So I think with that, we're a little early, but no sense in keeping people away from a beautiful sunny day outside. Those of you that can get out and enjoy it. Anything final for this? Joni or Julie, anything you need to add? Okay.
Thank you all for presenting. I think that the presentations were really complimentary. It was good to hear from all of the different aspects of the work that the school district is doing. And Grace, thank you so much for telling us what the city is doing. Just thank you. And I'm so delighted that after 3 years, we finally had this happen.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This was the snowstorm, then COVID canceled for 2 years in a row. So
Yes, exactly. Well, have a